Short and Willie, Puxatawny Phil, Staten Island Chuck, aka Charles G. Hogg, Chattanooga Chuck, French Creek Freddie, Ms. G, Jimmy the Groundhog, Shubenacadie Sam, Buckeye Chuck, Lucy the Lobster. What have I just rattled off? I have rattled off part of the Groundhog Prediction Machine. That is one of the top stories in North America today. All across North America, people were holding groundhogs and one lobster aloft, hoping for an accurate weather prediction. Guess what? None of them could agree on whether or not we're going to have an early spring. Groundhogs and one lobster are the cable news pundits of the animal world. My friends, we're going to need a bigger groundhog. It's kind of funny to think about what a crazy prediction machine has grown up around putting a top hat on a groundhog and having a pancake breakfast around it. And it tells us something about how desperate for certainty we as humans are. We really want to know the future. And I've got bad news for you. Right now, with levels of uncertainty where they are, your leaders, your pundits, your algorithms, and yes, your furry friends are less useful than they've ever been at giving you predictions. That doesn't mean you have to give up. It just means we need to focus on the present and on pattern spotting, on looking for signals. And that means blocking out a lot of noise. Because I don't know about you, but I've got the strangest feeling that we might be in the movie. Like maybe we're Murray and the world is Puxatawny. There does seem to be a lot of repeating patterns going on in the world, in our organizations, even in our own lives. So, what are we supposed to do with that? Well, I think there is a way to break out of it. I think we can, if we choose, take a step back and do a couple of things differently. So, when humans are confronted with uncertainty, it's superhuman, right? We all want certainty. But when we're confronted with uncertainty, we tend to either keep chasing imaginary control, which is certainty, or we freeze, like our friends, the groundhog, you know, the animal response. When we instead choose to be intentional about how we respond, it makes things change. Like one little breaks the loop. I know that this is going to sound almost too simple to believe, but the alternative is not caring about the future. And we're not nihilists. These men are nihilists, Donnie. There's nothing to be afraid of. So I think the alternative is to get better at doing this, at reading the signals. And here's what I would do. Pay attention softly. Look where other people are not looking. Ask different questions and do one thing differently. That's it. Paying attention softly means scanning the environment for what is actually changing, not getting caught in the spikes of drama. And that can be whether or not you are looking at the news. It can be whether or not you are looking at what is happening in your organization, or it can be your relationship. I'm not judging. Noticing is when you get quiet. So when I spoke to Dita Heilman in Greenland, she talked about how the Arctic hunters go out on the ice and they're very quiet. And it's when they look forward and are really quiet that they can see the smallest things happen. And they know out there is game, there is food. That's what we're trying to do when we're doing soft eyes. The second thing is to look where other people aren't looking, right? The truth usually isn't dead ahead. The most important thing isn't usually dead ahead. And again, since we kind of got the rodent thing going for today, the danger is not always right in front of you. Sometimes it's in the margins or somewhere else. So paying attention to the opposite of what everybody else is can be a competitive advantage, an evolutionary advantage, some might say. What are people not saying? What have we forgotten about? Like, what is conflict we've forgotten about that might still be brewing? And ask better questions. Like, I think sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes we think a question is really deep But when we strip it back, it's actually why me? Whereas when we make a question, how can I solve this? It actually makes our brains work differently. And I've done this when I would be in really difficult, high pressure situation and things are going wrong. I would always be thinking, how can I get this resolved? It just makes your brain work differently. Who would I have to be for this to come true? I mean, that could apply to almost any problem. And the same thing if you are trying to interrogate what is going on with somebody else, you can still drop down a level by saying, okay, what is said? Like, what is asked this person? What is the obvious? Because there's often an obvious thing that nobody is saying. And interrupt the default. If you're in a loop, there will be a thing you do next. Like, talking. We go back to our silos, we start bombing. No, not if you're in a consumer goods company, but maybe if you're a country. But if you can see it, because you've sat back, you've done all those things, then you can do one thing differently. That can make all the difference. And I'm not trying to like give you a lecture with this. I'm just trying to give you the power of the pattern. Because if we were looking at the news today, which parts of it could probably be the news in years gone by, I won't if it will be the news in the future, you would see it there as well, right? So conflict and escalation. If you pick any region, the shape is sort of familiar. There are warnings that are minimized. We sort of normalize it. There's a back and forth. Everybody starts talking until we have no idea what's going on. And then often we're shocked when it gets worse and nobody tries anything different, right? And then it goes horribly wrong. If we're then thinking about like trade, for example, there was a big trade deal between India and the US today. At least it was announced. That's another example of questions that be asked, like incentives repeat. If you want to know what's going to happen or what's likely to happen, ask who benefits and who's going to lose out and who's going to lose out if this doesn't go forward. Often you start to see the patterns emerging under that. It's not me being cynical about it. It's just clarity. And the truth is, we're probably going to see another trade deal come around, probably going to see more back and forth on those things. So it's always asking. And then you can ask the question underneath, which is who's benefiting from all of this uncertainty? Somebody is. So, how can I be that person? Better questions. And fear. I mean, that oldest loop, the amygdala. Our lizard, man, they give us tunnel vision. They focus us on what is familiar, even if it isn't working for us. And I think we always fall into this trap of thinking like, when I'm certain, I'll figure this out, when I'm certain. But I know one thing, you will never be certain enough, especially not when things are moving as fast as they are, when there are so many risks and there is so much pressure. There will never be certainty enough. So by the time you do pop your head out of your burrow, then somebody else is going to have changed the ground around you. And you will have paid a cost for it. I mean, why it makes me think of it, but sometimes at night, I watch old shows, Comfort. And I was watching The Practice, that show from like the early, about that law firm in Boston. And it's very topical, right? So it's very of the day. And I was thinking how all of these things that were happening to them were the end of the world. And I was remembering being there at the time, aging myself, and how we went through it as societies, how we didn't necessarily think it was going to be something we recovered from. And yet we did. I'm not saying that the challenges being faced right now and the uncertainty being faced right now aren't real. But I'm also saying that when you look back, you realize we've been in these loops for a long time and yeah, somehow we get through it. But the way we sort of wriggle our way out isn't by predicting the clear shot. It's by looking differently. It is by looking behind you. It is by asking different questions. And it is by doing one little thing differently. It may not be glamorous, but that is what does the work. And that brings me back to Groundhog Day, the movie, which I'm hoping to watch in just a few minutes. We get a little watch party together. Bill Murray, Phil, if you know his character, Get Out, because he guessed the answer. He lived that life, like, I can't remember how many times it was, hundreds of times. It was only when he actually really just became comfortable that that was life and started living in that life with total presence that he worked his way forward. I mean, now he'll also find true love because it's so romantic. But it was experimentation. It was progress. It was him becoming differently. Exiting a loop, a groundhog day of your own, is practice. Nothing more than that. So I'm not saying you can't choose your groundhog. You might have a favorite, but don't outsource your future to it. Don't outsource your future to any prediction. Pick a loop that you are seeing, like in your life. Come on, you know your pattern. I do. Pick one loop you're seeing. So it can be in the world, it can be in your own life. And just do it with me. Pay attention softly. Look where other people aren't looking. Ask a better question and do one thing differently. Just one. That's all. And if you're thinking, okay, well, what if this doesn't work? Head underground, have a nap, try again. History doesn't repeat. Humans do.